Darkness kills, destroys the will. Find a spark, make hearts thrill. Hear the tales of time so grim. Shine a light, don't let it dim. Heather Brown downtown, bound. True crime story she's found. In the shadows, secret stay. Need a light that finds the way.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Defeating the Darkness, True Crime Stories with Downtown Heather Brown. That's me, your host. I'm a former homicide and sexual assault prosecutor here in Orange County, California. And tonight, our guest, welcome back, is Brian Gurwitz, attorney at law, former homicide prosecutor in Orange County. No, you weren't in the homicide unit, huh?
I was not. I worked on some cases, but not in the unit.
I feel like you're so well versed in the law that you might as well have been in homicide.
Thank you.
Why weren't you in the homicide unit?
I was in writs and appeals, and then I went into be assistant head of court of felony panel. So
you were too smart, basically.
not my words.
Too much of a brainiac, right? That's what I would say.
Thank you.
You're one of those smart guys. We need you in the law in motion. We need you in writs and appeals. And what other stuff were you doing there at the DA's office?
That's pretty much it.
That's not it. You were a trial attorney.
Oh, sure. I was on felony panel. I was assistant head of court of felony panel. I was in the writs and appeals unit for quite a while.
Okay. So now you're a big, bad defense attorney, which we talked about in the first episode. And now that we're back, we're going to continue our episode about Jeff Ferguson. So a lot has happened and transpired. And just to bring our listeners up to speed, if you haven't listened to part one of this episode with Brian Gurwitz, current defense attorney in Orange County. If you haven't listened to the first episode, go back. We're back to talk about Jeff Ferguson, the former prosecutor, now judge, who is...
Ex-judge, thank you.
I'm sorry, ex-judge. So, well, don't give a spoiler alert, Brian. We're going to talk about what happened. So the last episode, you and I, he was just pending trial, right? He had been arrested.
Right.
He got in trouble because... he had one of those little scram devices on his ankle, and he tried some bullshit scheme to get people to think that, the judge to think that he had put hand sanitizer, and that's why his scram device alerted that there was alcohol in his system, and he was a 0.14, I think it came back with the exact amount.
Or 1.2 or something like that.
Yeah, something that was definitely not legal.
Either way, the judge called bullshit on it and gave her one more reason to hate him. Her hatred was palpable. Throughout the trial. Absolutely palpable.
Really? Like everybody in the room knew it?
Everybody who knew anything about criminal proceedings and how judges normally act toward prosecutors and defendants and defense attorneys knew that she had nothing but disgust for him.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about...
And it was well earned disgust.
Well, do you think, while we're on that topic, do you think that could somehow... affect like any type of appeal?
I don't think so, because she was a very careful judge. She didn't do, when you look at a cold record and you're reading a transcript, you can't see the expression on the judge's face. You can't hear the tone of what the judge is saying. There's nothing she said that's going to make an appellate court say, oh, that was inappropriate or anything of that nature. There's, I think the strongest, and I don't think it's particularly strong, but it's an argument. The strongest defense argument is probably that she rushed his attorneys into a retrial. So he went to trial the first time. It was 11-1 for guilt.
Ooh, let's talk about that. Did you go to that trial?
I saw some of it. I saw some of both.
Oh, wow. Okay, so at that point, when we recorded the first episode, he had Ed Wellborn as a lawyer. Right. Did that change? It
did. He ended up retaining Cameron Talley, who is also a former homicide prosecutor that we know. Quite a character. Very talented trial attorney, quite the silver-tongued devil.
Silver-tongued devil. He'll love hearing you say that. He's nuts, though. He
is.
Right?
Yes.
He's a great lawyer.
Right.
When it comes down to it, but he's, I think, certifiably insane.
You say that in a loving way, to be clear.
I mean that lovingly. I say that about you as well.
Thank you.
But you're welcome. And I mean it lovingly, but you are batshit crazy, as is Cameron.
I'm not nearly as crazy as Cameron. No. I'm like the model of mental health compared to Cameron colleagues.
I don't know about that. But we will have Cameron on the podcast as well. And you all can judge how nutty he is.
They will take votes.
Yeah. I would like that. That'd be fun. Okay. So do you know the reason for the switch in attorneys? Because didn't he have another attorney prior, even John Barnett, before Ed Wellborn?
He did. John Barnett and Paul Meyer were working on the case together. And then he retained Ed Wellborn. And then he ended up retaining Cameron. And I don't believe that the reasons for the switch were ever made public.
Okay. So we don't know why there was the switcheroo, but there was. And
we don't know why. I mean, we don't know why. And I'm not claiming, I'm not being coy here claiming I know, but I will say that the switch occurred after he got wasted and then committed perjury on the stand by claiming that it was hand sanitizer that made the ankle monitor detect alcohol.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Do you read anything? I'm not asking you. I know you have an insider.
Maybe. I could tell you he would be a very, very, very difficult client to have. Somebody who is experienced enough to think he knows better, but not smart enough to actually know better, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. Okay. So for whatever reason, he gets a new lawyer. He gets crazy Cameron Talley, who is a formidable opponent
Right.
in court, 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as is Ed, but he ends up with Cameron and then they go to trial. Let's talk about where the trial ended up taking place. Because I think on the first episode, we talked about how we weren't sure if it was going to be tried in LA or tried in Orange County because the judges in Orange County had to recuse themselves.
That's correct. So the judges, the entire Orange County bench recused themselves because they're not going to sit in judgment of one of their colleagues. The way it works, the Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court ends up appointing another judge. She appointed Eleanor Hunter of Los Angeles. The pretrial proceedings took place in Los Angeles, but when it was time for trial, she traveled down to Orange County and handled it, which was Jeff Ferguson's right, because you have a constitutional vicinage right to basically be tried by a jury in the community where the crime occurred. So either the Orange County jurors would have had to be transported up to LA daily, or the judge would come down. And so she ended up coming down and handling both trials.
Interesting. Okay, so then the case gets tried here in Orange County with Cameron, and was it still Seton Hunt who was the prosecutor?
He tried both times.
Okay. And so tell us what happened in the first trial. Like, what was his defense?
So here's the defense. And for those that don't know, basically there's the precursor to all this is that there's a fight at a restaurant between him and the wife. It's so bad a fight that she ends up going to the car. The adult son, Philip, who's early 20s, made some comment about, why don't you just get divorced, to the dad. So it was an ugly fight. The reason for the fight, he had apparently pointed his finger at her in the finger gun motion, and she got pissed off and left. They go back to the house. He's wasted. He has an ankle holster on in violation of every rule of common sense in gun possession that says you don't possess firearms when you're wasted. Or why would you have an ankle holster on when you're watching Breaking Bad with your family in the family room? But anyway, who am I to judge? So anyway,
you don't do that.
I don't do that. So the fight continues. Apparently, according to Sun, there's testimony that the fight's continuing while they're watching TV. And
do you know what they were fighting about? Like him doing the finger gun, but why did he do that? You don't know?
There was some talk, and I don't know if this was just Jeff's bullshit that came up, but I think there was some talk about maybe there was some resentment or animosity on the wife Cheryl's part that he was supporting, and he had given a gift of cash to somebody he considered his son, and the son hadn't been appropriately thankful or something like that. I say somebody he considers the son because I think it's a situation where it's a prior relationship. He felt that he believed for quite a while that he was the father, the biological father, and then later learned that he wasn't, but still remained close to him. So I think that was an area of tension in the relationship from everything I heard, and I think there was some testimony on it too. So they're fighting about it, and then according to Philip's statement to the police at the time, Cheryl makes a statement like, why don't you point a real gun at me, or something like that. And
Is that at home when they're watching Breaking
that's
Bad?
while they are watching Breaking Bad. They're on a set of chairs and a couch that are perpendicular to one another. She's on a chair, he's on the couch, or vice versa, but they're perpendicular to each other, 90-degree angle. And at that time, he pulls out the gun, shoots her in the chest. That's the simple version of the story. The defense at trial was, oh, she didn't really say, go point a gun at, why don't you point a real gun at me? She said something to the effect of, why don't you put your gun away, or something like that. He pulled out his gun to set it on the table, which, okay, my commentary, complete and utter bullshit. Like, what, your wife's upset about you using violent language and threatening her with a gun, so you're going to make her feel comfortable by taking it off your ankle and putting it on the table right in front of her face? I mean, that's stupid, but whatever. So,
Which is arguably more readily accessible than if it's on your ankle holster.
of course it is. That's why it was such,
That's stupid.
it's such a lie. So anyway, as he's doing that to thoughtfully put the gun on the table.
Was this his testimony?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Exactly. So he sets the gun down, gently cradling it in his hand, sets it on the table. But lo and behold, he has a messed up shoulder that only has like one working tendon left or something like that. His arm gives out and the gun falls. He catches it and squeezes the trigger by mistake, thereby perfectly shooting her in the chest at the time that they were fighting. So that was the defense.
Okay, I have to interject here. Did anybody argue? Because I didn't watch any of this. I didn't follow any of it. I just get my news from you, Brian. But which is it just shows terrible judgment
idea.
on my part.
I'm fair and balanced.
You are very fair and balanced. Okay, but imbalanced, I think, is the word. Okay. Did anybody at trial argue this? You do understand anyone who carries their gun in an ankle holster, like especially cops, right? Or they have a holster around their waist. When they put their gun away, they don't take the gun out of the holster. They take the entire thing and put it in the safe.
Right.
So
or the nightstand or whatever that he was going to do. That I don't believe that Seaton argued that. He might have, but I did hear from that. I did hear that people talking about that, like, what a bunch of nonsense.
That's why it's bullshit. If you're going to put your gun away, you're going to take the holster off your ankle.
Yeah, just
you're going to walk around with an
unvelcro the Velcro holster.
That's all you do. And then you put the entire thing in the holster away.
Right.
So you can just pop the holster back on the next day when you roll out to go to drinks with your friends. Okay.
Right. So
that was sarcasm, by the way.
Right. So then he shoots her in the chest and then goes outside to wait for the police while the son tries to save her life.
He didn't try any resuscitation.
He did jack shit. He said he didn't want to, I think
mess
his
up the
argument,
murder scene?
He didn't want to mess up the murder scene, exactly. No, I think his testimony was that he didn't want to cause the police officers to think there was like a hostage situation or some danger. He thought that would be the quickest way to get help. But that was also nonsense because and the judge just let him have it with this at the time of sentencing. He goes outside, and as the cops come, he's as arrogant as can be, and they're yelling at him, "Get down on the ground, get down on the ground," and he won't. He's yelling at them and saying, "I can't get down." And I think the defense argument at trial was that he's way too old and way too fat to get on the ground. But come on. Fall down. As the DA said, your wife's been shot. He argued this in closing. Your wife's been shot. You just shot her in the chest. Fall on your face if you have to. Do anything you can. Don't be out there, big dogging them and saying, "Oh, I'm Judge Ferguson," and so forth like he did. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, I think he's pretty arrogant on all fronts. Okay, so
I think
I do. And I know you do. I'm sensing that from you, Brian.
Well, I mean, you see it in the other episode. We could see some of the stuff that he was doing during the trial.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, before the trial in terms of like the social media posts. Then after the first trial, there's a hung jury, and he goes on a media tour.
Okay, back up before we get to that juicy part. Okay, so you're there, you're watching this, testimony. He basically claims that he was taking the gun to put it on the table and accidentally went off.
In his loving gesture to make his wife feel more to abide by her wishes.
Her wishes and make her feel more safe.
Yeah.
And then he's not non-compliant, arguably, with the cops. And there were some text messages that he sent immediately.
Yeah, the text message was not, "Oh, I just shot my wife by accident." The text message, which he sent to his court staff, including his court clerk and his bailiff, was, "I won't be into work tomorrow." Something effective. "I won't be into work tomorrow.
I lost it.
I lost it, and I shot my wife." And never said it was an accident, of course.
Yeah. So the first time anybody hears that it's an accident is when the case goes to trial.
Right. Which is probably...
Did he give this bullshit story to the police when he was originally arrested?
He didn't. He was vague. He made stupid comments. He compared himself appropriately to a second-degree murderer. So there's something called a Watson murder in California, which is a theory that if somebody's got a DUI before and they've been warned about the dangers of drinking and driving, and then they go out again after they're convicted and they drink and drive again and they kill somebody, that person doesn't just have the mental state of somebody who commits manslaughter, but under this case called Watson, that it could rise to the level of a second-degree murder because you consciously disregarded the risk to human life. So his mental state as a second-degree murder, the DA was arguing, is quite similar to that case. And when he's in the interview,
we talked about this in the first episode,
right? When he's in the interview room at Anaheim PD, he's in his drunken mumblings in the recorded interview room, he compares it to a Watson murder
because it's inherently dangerous to human life.
It's inherently dangerous to human life, and he knew it, especially because he's been a judge. He was a DA for a long time. He knows about the dangers of. Yeah, he knows about the dangers of firearms and alcohol, especially during a contentious fight with your wife.
Yeah. Okay, so ultimately, I'm assuming that the DA did not argue for premeditated murder.
That's correct.
Okay, but he did argue for a first degree? Or did he concede?
I don't know if there was an actual concession or not, but it's sort of...
A first degree would be he had the intent to kill her.
He had the intent. Yeah, first degree would be he had the intent to kill.
When he did the act which killed her.
When he did the act, he pointed a gun intending to, to end her life when he shot her. A second degree murder was, even if he didn't intend to end her life, what he did was so reckless, and he knew in his mind that when he was doing this, he was, pointing a gun or whatever the act was, he was consciously disregarding human life, risk to human life. Something that was inherently dangerous. So that was the DA's argument. I don't think the DA asked for a first degree instruction, if I recall correctly.
And so what happens? How long was the jury out?
They were out for quite a while, days and days, I believe, the first time. Ugh. And then they were hung 11-1 for guilt. And then the second trial came back pretty quickly.
Did anybody talk to the jurors afterwards and see what was the holdup? Like the one person who was holding out for
I don't know.
Okay. So they hang 11-1, and for our listeners, what happens when it's not a unanimous decision?
When it's not a unanimous decision, 12 for guilt or 12 for not guilty, then the case can be retried as long as the judge will allow it, and they typically will, especially in a case like this, and particularly in an 11-1 case. Then you could do it. Now, I do know that there was some discussions about a possible plea bargain before the second trial, and this came out, in some of the courtroom proceedings, that there was some discussion about it. But Ferguson said, "No matter what, I'm not going to go to prison," which was, again, the height of arrogance. Now, I understand he's 75 years old and, morbidly obese.
What, he wanted probation for shooting?
Probably,
his
and
wife?
maybe some jail time or something like that, local time for a few months. But yeah, and I think the judge made some comment about, "I'm not going to accept any term that doesn't include prison." And so the negotiations ended because he said prison's a deal breaker, and the DA said, "Well, it's not going to be a deal without prison." I think the judge may have as well. Interestingly, as a footnote, the judge at sentencing made a comment about she was, talking about all of his arrogance, all of his bad behavior. And she made an aside about the fact that he turned down any offer for the second trial. And there's absolutely no relevance to that in her sentencing decision. But I think it was a way of sticking it to him. So her thought is that, hey, maybe during the rest of his remaining days before he dies in California prison, he could feel like should have taken the deal.
We were talking about Ferguson, arrogance. Oh, and the judge, yeah, basically, how do you like me now, right? Like
Right.
sentencing you to life in prison, and you arguably could have been at least had some hope that you're getting out.
Right.
Okay, so isn't though, even if he goes down on a second-degree murder, right, it's 15 to life, and there's a gun enhancement for discharge of a firearm, which gets you another whack of at least, is it 10 or 25?
It's 25. So it's another 25 to
life.
life. She exercised her discretion to, I use that in quotes because it's sort of a Pyrrhic victory when you're morbidly obese and you're 75. It's not like you've got decades left to live. But she sentenced him. She lowered the enhancement from 25 to life to another 20-year enhancement.
Which is a determinant. And
So it ended up being 15 to life plus 20 years. So that combines to 35 to life, meaning he would have the right to a parole hearing, no right to ever get out again, but the right to a parole hearing where he could ask to get out after 35 years minus credit. So about 2/3 of that time. So he'll have a right. I think I calculated that he'd have a right to a parole hearing when he's, in his 90s, late 90s or something like that, if he ever lived that long.
wow. So it really is a life sentence.
Yeah. And by the way, a cynic, which of course I would never be, but a cynic would say that the judge reduced that enhancement by 5 years just to show the appellate court her fairness to him and the fact that she wasn't out to get him. Because look, she lowered the possible sentence.
Well, and I think it actually gives you something to live for. They got a lot of programs in prison now. They can work off some of their sentence too. Maybe he could do that.
And so he'll get out when he'll have parole hearing when he's 95 and not 97.
Well, at least he could have another cocktail at one point in his life, right?
He'll be having a lot of cocktails, but there'll be Pruno cocktails. Pruno, for those who don't know, is the
Prison-made wine.
prison wine with fruit and bread and so forth, put in a trash bag to ferment.
It's like rotted fruit, right?
Right.
You got to do what you got to do, I would think.
You got to do what you got to do.
You know what? White Lightning's like I think the vodka version of
No, really?
prison vodka. I can't remember how they make that. It can't be good, though. I'll find out.
Find out.
Let's find out that one, Pete. But I do know it's called White Lightning. I found out that one day. But anyway, I've forgotten what it consists of. Okay, so back to Ferguson. So the jury hangs, the judge basically then, what happens after the jury hangs? She allows them to retry it, obviously.
She allows him to retry it. And then here's where the appellate argument comes in. What would be his best appellate argument? I don't think he's ultimately...
Don't say it in case he listens.
Ferguson?
Yeah, and then he gets out.
He knows this argument. It was part of the motion for new trial.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
This isn't some secret. The argument is that she being the judge, forced them to trial and didn't give them time to prepare. And so Cameron Talley argued through his co-counsel, Francis Prizia, at the motion for new trial that, hey, I was incompetent. I was ineffective as a lawyer because you, judge, forced me to trial. I didn't have the chance to consult with the experts I needed and so on and so forth.
Okay, but doesn't that lose its the argument's strength by the fact that he had already tried the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that'd be like, really? If it were a new lawyer, I think if he had procured a new lawyer for the second trial, he'd have a much better argument.
Of course. Of course.
Okay.
And her, throughout the trial, she was, throughout the sentencing proceeding, I should say, she was gushing about Mr. Talley and how effective he was and so on and so forth. And at some point he said, "Thank you, Your Honor." And she said, "Don't thank me yet," which we all knew what that meant, is that she's basically, again, to be a little bit cynical, but somebody who observes courtroom proceedings, we all know that she's trying to create a record for the appellate court that this is the best attorney that's ever tried a case in the history of the world. He was not ineffective. He was a phenomenal lawyer. So even if I made a mistake, it didn't hurt his ability to do a phenomenal job representing Judge Ferguson. So don't reverse the case. Don't reverse the conviction.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, like, he hung it the first time. So he clearly, knew the proper arguments to at least get one person to be like,
Right.
not guilty.
Right.
Right? I'm not convinced. Mm-hmm. So what do you think the difference was in the two trials? Like, you watched parts of both of them?
I did. I think it's mainly a jury argument. I mean, every time you have a different 12 groups of people, the whole dynamic shifts and different arguments are raised in the juror room. Different personalities are stronger than others. And I didn't see his testimony in the second trial, but I heard he was not quite as emotional in the second trial as he was in the first trial.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about some antics he was pulling during trial or in between trials.
So the judge was furious about this he went on a media tour and did a bunch of television interviews in the period between the first and the second trial.
Oh, I didn't
where
know
he
that.
was, doing his crocodile tears and so forth, and wanting to, basically testify on TV and hope to influence the media and the jury pool and so forth. The judge was furious about it. She also made a comment about how, as a judge, he should know better because he's affecting, the rights of the parties. And judges shouldn't be commenting on a case, which I thought was kind of a silly argument. It's like, come on. I think the rules you have to follow as a judge sort of don't necessarily apply with such strictness when you're on trial for murder yourself. It's not like he was commenting on some random case, but it was just one more example of the judge taking every opportunity to criticize him. And for those like me who were hoping for conviction because they're not fans of his and certainly not fans of his conduct, it was fun to see because she absolutely hated him and she was channeling the hatred that a lot of courtroom observers had too. But we'll see if that allows him to make any arguments on appeal. I don't think so.
And so as far as the comments and stuff, did she admonish him like, hey, knock it off?
She did. And she also, interestingly, and some people think this is a great basis for appeal. I don't think so. I don't know her exact words, but she basically, in sum and substance, says he's got to control his emotions on the witness stand in the second trial. And
did he cry in the first one?
He did. And she made some comment to the effect of, I don't know if she said, if he cries, I'm going to discharge the jury, or, I don't want to have to be in a position of discharging the jury if things get too emotional. And the words she used could be critical. But, there's a bunch of criminal defense attorneys who were thinking, oh, that's the best appellate argument in the world because she's telling somebody he can't express emotions on the witness stand. I don't think there's any merit to that. First of all, the defense didn't object. So unless they were constitutionally incompetent and not objecting, they've lost that ground for appeal. But second of all, I don't think there's any law that precludes a judge from, well, let me back up. Judges have the duty to ensure a fair trial for both sides. And a judge, I think, could rationally take the position that if there's too much emotion, it could detract from the juror's ability to impartially weigh the evidence. So if things get too emotional, I'm going to discharge the jury. So my position, as if I were arguing the appeal for the government, would be, well, isn't it better for her to warn the parties before than to, have act emotionally during the trial and kick the jury out the first time he has a tear? She basically said, stop playing games on the stand. I think it was clear that she felt it was all a big act. She thought his testimony during the first trial was an act. She thought his crying on television was an act, and that he was just a world-class manipulator.
What did you think?
What did I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think the tears were for himself.
Yeah. Now, was there anything shocking?
Because he certainly, if he truly had remorse, he didn't have to bail out. He didn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars bailing out. He could have said, okay, well, that money that I have, those limited funds, I've been a government employee my whole life, I want him to go to the my son of the mother I killed in front of him, instead of saying, I'm going to, spend all this money and get out on bail and, commit perjury repeatedly before trial and at trial both times. He disgraced himself. He absolutely disgraced himself.
And clearly the jury agreed, right? Because they didn't buy his accident story.
They didn't buy it.
Did anybody talk to the jurors after?
I'm not sure. Not sure.
I'd be curious to see what they thought. They probably thought it was manipulative. Do you think that the jurors believed the son's testimony about, like, my mom? Because didn't he originally tell the police that he said one thing and then change it?
He did. So his statements to the police on the night of the shooting were extremely favorable to the prosecution. And, he talks about how his mom made some comment to the effect of, why don't you take a rail gun out, or why don't you point a rail gun at me? And he reached down into his ankle holster, aimed at her chest, and shot her. And so it was a very powerful statement. And here's the best prosecution argument I heard, and it didn't come from the DA. It actually came from a defense attorney I know, Lee Stoneham, who's a public defender. I forgot exactly. I'm not going to do it justice the way Lee said it, but it was basically saying, why didn't Jeff that night say it was an accident? Why wasn't he saying when the police got there? Why wasn't he saying in the police car? Why wasn't he saying in the interview room, I shot my wife, it was an accident, it was an accident? You know why he didn't do it? He didn't do it because he knew his son would call bullshit on it. He knew his son would contradict it because it was not an accident. And he needed time to turn his son around, and that's what he did during the period between bailing out of jail and going to trial. He developed a relationship with his he made amends to the extent possible with his son. He kind of rekindled that relationship, it appears, and the son was very clearly inconsistent with what he told the police.
Wow. Well,
but that is the best argument, that it was an accident. I mean, it really was, and it really makes sense why he wasn't saying it was an accident.
Yeah, it does, right? And
because he knew his son would say it was an accident. She challenged him. He pulled out the gun. He pointed it at her.
Yeah, he might be even more emphatic about what was said.
And I don't know if I talked about this when we recorded the first episode, but one thing I did not know is that at some point the argument got so intense, during Breaking Bad, that the son pulled out a sword. He's like what do you call it? What do you call the sport of swords?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Fencing.
Fencing. So, and he actually pulled out a sword at some point. And then I think at trial he was unclear about whether it was right before the shooting or right after. But one thing he did say is he jumped over the chair and tackled his dad. And it's like, oh, really? That's what you do after an accident?
Yeah, right?
You tackle your dad?
Yeah.
Because, if it was an accident, it'd be like, oh, fuck, look what happened. I can't, and.
Yeah. Oh my God, help me.
Right.
Let's resuscitate her, right? Cover the wound.
Right. Instead, he strolls outside while his son tries to save his mom's life.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the 911 tape, but the judge said that it was one of the most heartbreaking things she had ever heard as a judge. Just the tape of him calling, saying what happened, and then the 911 operator having to lead him through resuscitating his dying mom.
Oh, my God. Sounds brutal. That's brutal. Okay, so second time around, jury's like not buying it, and so was he taken into custody, remanded right then and there?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Of course.
She actually, it's interesting the way it happened. She was constantly pissed off at him during the trial. She, being the judge, was pissed off at him for the trial. And then shortly before the jury came back with a verdict, the second trial, it was reported to her by one of the bailiffs that he's sitting on a chair in the hallway, and there might have been some jurors around, talking to a bail bondsman about the case in the presence of the jury, which he had been admonished repeatedly not to do. To behave, as all the parties have to behave themselves around the jury and not make any statements. You need to protect the jury from hearing anything out of court that might influence them. And so she called for a hearing. She was about to take him into custody, I think, for yet again violating one of her admonitions to behave properly in front of the jury. So I think he was going to go into custody. And but that became moot because the jurors knocked on the door and told the bailiff that they had a verdict.
And that's the signal, right? For the people who aren't trial attorneys.
Right.
When the jury goes back in the jury room, they knock when they have...
Or they have a doorbell or something.
Or I think they have a bell.
Might be a bell. Either way, they'll let the bailiff know that there's a verdict.
I think they knock. I think it's a knock. God, I can't remember. Why can't we remember?
Because we were never jurors and we never heard it.
That's true. They just tell us the jury had a question.
Right.
Okay, so the jurors have verdicts. And
jurors have verdicts. They come back, they convict him of second-degree murder, and they find the enhancement to be true that he intentionally discharged a firearm.
So there's the enhancement. Okay, so she ultimately takes him into custody.
By the way, that's an interesting... I'm just thinking about this now.
Okay.
The enhancement the jury convicted him of requires... So there's a gun enhancement. There's called a 10-20 life gun enhancement in California. Yeah. It's 10 years if you point a gun. It's 20 years...
discharge it.
If you intentionally discharge it, and it's 25 to life if you intentionally discharge it and cause great bodily injury. And so the jury, by finding that enhancement's true, they necessarily found that he intentionally discharged the firearm. So I don't know how well that point was argued by the defense, because they may not have wanted to focus on that small detail. But, you know, for example, the defense would have had a logically consistent argument of, even if you find the murder to be true as a second-degree murder, this enhancement of 25, you know, this enhancement of intentionally discharging isn't true because he might have just done it with conscious disregard for human life. I don't know if they made that argument, but that's what the jury instruction says. And so by convicting of the enhancement, the jury, you know, the way it'll look to an appellate court is that the jury necessarily concluded that he fired the gun intentionally. And that's a bad finding from the jury. Now, okay, practically speaking, did the jury know the difference? Were they paying attention to that instruction if it wasn't really argued by the defense? Probably not. Probably not.
Just, if we find this to be true,
then he shot the gun, so we find him that guilty of the enhancement.
The true one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little do they know that the enhancement gets you more time than the actual murder.
Right.
Because you can get 25 to life for that enhancement.
Right.
And a second degree is only 15 to life.
So by making that, by finding that enhancement to be true, the jury didn't conclude that he simply, may have accidentally discharged the gun, but it's still a second-degree murder because of this conscious disregard theory. They necessarily found that he shot her, or that he intentionally shot the gun at least. Doesn't mean that he had the intent to kill, doesn't even mean that he intended to harm her, but they necessarily concluded by that verdict that he intentionally discharged the firearm. And that's pardon the pun, but that's a deadly finding for the defense.
Yeah, it sure
Now,
is.
I made some comment about how, maybe the jury didn't even realize the distinction because maybe the defense didn't argue it. And I don't mean to sound too critical. I'm not trying to be critical about the defense, because one of the things that every defense attorney knows is true is that when you're arguing to the jury, you want to have a consistent argument, and there's certain things that could make the jury go, like, what are you saying? You're saying he might have murdered her, but don't find the enhancement to be true because of some technicality. What, you know what I mean? Or you could think, so you might think you'd lose the jury if you made that argument, or you might think that if you tell the jury that, they think they're compromising, they convict him of murder and not the enhancement. You don't want that kind of splitting of the baby either. So I'm not faulting the defense for not arguing it, but I am saying that the appellate court can consider that to be a finding that the jury concluded something about his intent that maybe they never even did.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he's now in prison.
He's now in prison.
And probably never getting out. Agreed?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a better, I think it's unlikely that the appeal will be granted. I mean, certainly under 50%, but he has an argument, that's not frivolous.
How much time was there between the first one and the second one? If that's the strongest argument.
It was a couple of months. It was not a long time at all.
Okay.
It was not a long time at all.
Yeah, but if you think a couple months, like, you have a right to a jury trial on a felony, right? So any defense attorney, if your client doesn't want to waive time, would have to be ready and prepared.
Right, but he did want to waive time. He was asking for a continuance.
I know. But
He, through his lawyer, was saying, we're not prepared for trial. and you, judge, are forcing us to be prepared before we have a chance to consult with the medical experts, consult with the firearm experts, and consult with everybody else they were saying that they were denied the opportunity to do. And I don't want to address each little sub-contention because I wouldn't be able to do it accurately, but the judge basically took it all apart at sentencing and said, this is all bullshit.
Okay, so what happened at sentencing? Tell us about that.
Sentencing was an all-day proceeding. I was there for the entire thing.
Packed courtroom?
Pretty packed courtroom. I was live blogging it for the Orange County Criminal Defense Facebook page for all the people that couldn't be there that day.
What does that mean, live blogging? I don't know.
So I'm on Facebook commenting on everything that's happening in the court, just throughout the afternoon.
And I'm sure they were very unbiased professional comments.
Oh, of course they were.
Okay. So what were you being crazy? Maybe. Okay.
A little.
So I know you were. That was a dumb question. Okay. So crowded courtroom.
Crowded courtroom. A number of his family members testified. And when I say his family members, I mean his in-laws too. Like his
Cheryl's family.
Cheryl's siblings, at least 2, maybe 3 of them testified or spoke. And these are supposed to be these are typically victim impact statements where you're talking about the loss of the loved one and why,
you should get the max.
Exactly, or whatever, or letting the judge know about the impact of this death on you. And there was not a whole lot of discussion about what kind of person Cheryl was. There was a lot of discussion about what kind of person Jeff was. Again, even by her siblings. And at the time of sentencing...
You mean like favorable comments?
Favorable comments by people who believed him. And one of Cheryl's brothers, after the first trial, came out publicly and said, I now believe this was an accident. And so he was a character. He spoke at sentencing talking about... he was all over the place talking about what he experienced in the trial and the family's history of Holocaust survivors and so on and so forth, and what a shame, what a tragedy of justice this was. A lot of his comments were not too subtle attacks on the judge for not giving Jeff a fair trial.
Interesting.
It was interesting. And then at the sentencing, the judge made a passive-aggressive, not too passive, comment about what a shame it was that during all the speeches, during the victim impact portion of the sentencing, there was so little focus on the real victim. And that resonated with me because it was true.
That sounded
true.
like a powerful statement.
I mean, what happened is, we all have our opinions. I'm not going to fault them for having their opinions, but for whatever reason, those family members believed that, especially after the first trial, this guy did not intentionally shoot his sister, and it should be, it's unfair to be prosecuting him for murder.
Interesting. I think some victims, and I'm sure this probably goes for his son. I'm not, who really knows, but I do think that sometimes people psychologically, in order to actually deal with something that's so shocking and incomprehensible, and then like when your loyalties are turned, like Philip with his dad and his mom, like my dad killed my mom.
Right.
Like there's something deep in you that wants to believe it was really an accident. So if you can put it in that compartment, then you don't have to vilify someone you love. You don't have to vilify your father who you're half. Like, if my dad's a monster, what does that make me? It makes you question yourself. Like, I've seen just psychologically, a lot of people do that when they've been through trauma with someone. That's a better story to tell myself so I can sleep well at night. So
Maybe.
So I'm not.
And my bias is thinking that, as I'm watching Philip speak to the judge, Philip being the son, speak to the judge and talk about how much he loves his dad and how great his dad was, and give very, very little comment, if any, about his mom, which was really unfortunate. But I was thinking, like, wouldn't it be better if he saw this the way I do, which is that my dad got drunk and wasted because he has a history and a lifetime of bad judgment and shot my mother, and I could be mad at him? Like, that seems to me to be the healthier approach, rather than believing this fantasy, but I realize that what I'm saying may not be fair. I've never been in that position. I obviously have a different relationship with my father than he does with his father. I don't know. So I realize that could be unfair, but that's my bias.
Yeah.
And I guess part of it also stems from the fact that I have no doubt that belief on his son's part is motivated by Jeff manipulating his son into thinking it was an accident.
Wow.
I mean, I'd love to cross-examine Jeff in front of his son.
Wow, that'd be fun. I want to see that show.
I'd love it.
We invite him on the podcast. Maybe I'm just kidding. I'm sure they'll say sure. Maybe we can get him piped in from prison or something. Well, it is sad. It's sad on many fronts. But I do think it's, it just is a shining example of falling from grace, right? And, here he was, in his mind, a respected judge in Orange County, although not respected by everyone, but certainly by some, and his family and friends alike. And now he's in prison for murder. And his wife is, no longer with us. And that's sad for everybody. So, wow. Anything else? Anything else you want to say, Brian?
I don't think so. I certainly don't find it sad that he's in prison.
No, you're happy.
I find it sad that, I think it's great that he's in prison. I think it's sad that he killed his wife.
Yeah.
In front of his son. I mean, that's tragic.
Yeah.
But I'm delighted that the jury did the right thing.
Yeah. Well, another case of justice being served, right?
I'm not going to say how often justice is actually served. I'm not going to agree with you on that one, but it was
okay. You don't have to. What do you think justice is not served?
Sometimes. Yeah. Absolutely.
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
I agree with you 100%.
But justice was served in this case.
Okay. So that's a good thing. That's a positive note, right? Just as you said that, my cross earring fell off. It's a message. We need to forgive him and not be happy that he's in prison. Or we could be happy he's in prison and still.
Who am I? I can't. Who are we to forgive? We didn't get murdered.
That's true. Well, let's just hope we never do. How about that? All right, we gotta leave on it. We gotta land on a positive note. I know a positive note. Peter.
Finnerty.
We got to get our next guest here. Our next guest has been waiting patiently to film his episode, and they go way back. You and Peter Finnerty go way back to the DA's office, right?
We do.
And did you ever work in the same unit with Peter? I love that we're talking about him before he's even here.
I don't think we worked in the same unit, but I was entertained by him from afar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's quite the entertaining guy.
He's an entertainer. He makes me look appropriate and cautious in my speech.
Oh, so is that why you like him?
And skinny.
Oh my God, what's with you and weight, Brian? You're out of control. What do you say about me when I'm not around? He loves to throw around the phrase morbidly obese.
That's because I'm merely obese.
If he puts on 10 pounds, he's morbidly obese because he's drinking salt.
Oh gosh. All right. Where are we going to put Peter? Peter's going to join us just for a couple minutes, and then we're going to switch to Peter's episode. I caught him eating.
Because he can have his
Full of food
bottle of whiskey in hand.
and meat in my mouth. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so talk to us about Mr. Finnerty.
Peter Finnerty was born in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. He went to Brooklyn Law School.
Fun spot. Thank you. I did go to Brooklyn Law School for my JD.
For his JD, then he got an LLM, which is an advanced law degree, at Georgetown in tax. And then he hated tax, so he became a DA.
I wouldn't say I hated tax.
Okay. Well, he didn't.
I just didn't want to do it professionally.
Okay. Just as a hobby?
No, I really enjoyed the study of it, and then I actually worked in it. I was like, not for me.
Okay. So anyway, he then joined the DA's office where he was voted every year the DA that was most likely to be inappropriate in the courtroom and get the judge mad at him because of it.
Well, that I definitely was successful in on more than one occasion without even trying. We will keep the judges' names private. They know who they are.
Okay, so Peter and Brian, you never worked in the same unit? You don't have any crazy stories about one another?
No.
Or-
We do about our parents, but no, not at work.
Okay. Can we do a PG version of
I don't
that?
know if it's possible to do a PG version of anything with
Okay.
Gurwitz here.
I don't
PG.
think so either. He's actually got a little bit of a governor today.
Yeah, well, it's because he's in the zone. You know, he's focused and he's talking about work. But when he starts talking about my mom, that governor just it flies out the window. So
Okay, maybe we should just skip that for another episode. Your parents went out on occasion, like a couple times, right?
Yes, my dad was is a widow and his mother is a widow.
well,
Or widow,
widower.
whatever. I'm
my
confused
mom's
by
the
those.
widow. I know it's difficult.
They're big words.
Yeah.
And we set them up on a date, and they either dated for a while
you
or
set them up on a date. You just asked me, hey, we should get together for dinner. I thought, yeah, great. Then we were there. You're like, hey, Dad, why don't you ask Tori out? I was like, what is happening right now?
This is historical revision.
No, that is just balls on accuracy with exactly what
So
happened.
anyway, my dad pursued his mother for a while,
Yeah.
and
And he's like, we're going to be stepbrothers. And I immediately thought of the movie Step Brothers. It was like, oh my gosh, I hope he stays away from my drum set.
All right. Wow. You guys are nuts. I think we should keep you here, but
Is that it? Should I step back out?
no, you don't have to step out. We can close out with you guys together.
I'm sipping whiskey in between breaths. I should probably put that down for a moment.
have some like
I
tea.
plan on
tea,
drinking
so-
No, I
you.
drink like a man. Thank you. Anthony.
I have a can I ask his position on a legal issue?
Yes, please do.
Do you believe that it is worse to shoot your wife in the chest in front of your son and to end her life and fuck him up
with,
for life
with what?
a gun?
Okay.
Or
I'm with Heather Brown on this. I really think you need to stop saying.
Boom. I know. We're just going to beep him every time he says it so we don't have to hear it over and over.
What? I will say this. I don't think there's a moral equivalence in that obviously taking someone's life would be objectively a worse thing.
you end up saying butt here, you're nuts.
However,
Butt hair? What did you just say?
Butt
You look
hair.
great, by the way.
Thank you.
All right.
But
No, but in the context of this conversation, I understand how she's okay with profanity, just not profanity at the expense of the Lord. I get that.
actually, profanity is directed toward the Lord. Like saying shit, I don't believe is profane. I believe profanity necessarily implies a religious connotation to your.
oh, really? So it's only.
I believe so.
profane.
Can I ask ChatGPT?
Yeah. This is interesting. If you're right on this, I'm going to be very surprised. And
Like when you write God, you write G-D, right?
Is all profanity bad language directed toward God, or is it just swearing in general?
what did
See without
ChatGPT
my
say?
glasses.
Originally, it meant language that profaned something sacred, especially God, holy objects, or religious ideas. But now it's been
Expanded.
expanded.
So
I'll say, what if you're not Jewish?
you used to be right.
I think, yeah. So
Used to be what?
I think it used to be what you were thinking.
Oh, yeah. And
You were
it's
kinda
still-
right.
It still is to people who understand English.
actually, as a Brooklyn Law School grad, I'm honorary member of the
How did you know all these things about Peter? Because you guys have been friends for so long?
Yeah, because I got to know everything about him when I was trying to
Set him up with your mother?
hook up our parents.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine if you actually were like stepbrother?
And actually, I got to know Brian when he was still drinking. He would have his.
We're not going to talk about this.
He would have half of his whiskey sour and just like fall out of his chair and be like, "Brr," I'm on my fifth drink. Like, are you all right there, buddy? And we had a lot of fun when we went out.
Yeah, that's because one drink for me is about
40.
an 18 pack for you.
You're like a 12-year-old girl, Brian, when it comes to drink.
Actually,
I think my daughter could out
I
drink.
caught my 7-year-old drinking my whiskey once, and she handled it better than he handles a whiskey sour. So I wouldn't quite give him 12. I'll give you 6.
Fair.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
It is.
Sure, your wife appreciates that.
And he's much healthier for it.
Yes.
You're very good about your diet and about not drinking alcohol, which I'm impressed by.
Okay, let me finish this episode.
Well, I'm gonna go.
No, stay right there. You're in the episode.
I talked through my sip of
All right.
mother's milk.
No, you know why I'm
Is your
like,
dad little like you? No, I mean,
no,
really.
he's littler, which is
he's
why, like,
smaller.
of all of my
a smaller
insecurities,
person than you?
of all of my insecurities in life, height's not one of them. My dad's 5'3", my sisters were 5 feet tall, and my mom was 4'8.5". So I was like, you look at a family photo, and I'm like
You're the
fucking
giant.
Abraham Lincoln.
If his dad was Irish, he'd be a leprechaun.
Okay, for him.
He's a Jewish leprechaun.
It's true. It's true.
He's a Jewicon? This doesn't work.
It's true. I cower over my dad.
You do. You're like Shaquille O'Neal to your dad.
And why don't I care about being bald? Because I grew up with my dad having a toupee. It was the worst thing in the world.
Your dad wears a toupee.
No, he hasn't since
all
like
right.
1996.
But he did when you were younger.
He had a toupee that was so bad. Everybody always talked about it.
Oh.
And so,
That's
you know how I
hard.
finally got him to get rid of it?
You took yours off?
1996. Renee and I had been married for about a year or two. And I said, hey, Dad, I'm trying to encourage him to get rid of the toupee. Get rid of it. Well, your mother says I look younger. I'm like, well, sure, the elephant man looked younger when he was 20 than a good-looking guy does at 50. But do you want to be the fucking elephant man? You know?
Are you the good-looking guy in this analogy?
So I'm like, let me ask you a question. Hey, Renee, you know how Renee would say anything not to offend you?
Your wife is a saint, so
You know how she would say anything not to offend you? Yeah? Like, she would even lie. Renee, do you like my dad's toupee? Do you think it looks anything other than absurd? She's like, it's nice. My dad's like, okay. Rips it off his head, throws it against the room, and it lands in the sink.
That's
like,
it?
did
was
the
it.
cat attack it or something? Or
We don't know.
your wife is an absolute sweetheart.
And delusional because she is as sweet and smart as can be, and she
Because
married
she
Brian.
sees his soul, and this is one of the best people I know.
He really is.
He really is.
Peter.
It's true. We love to rip on you because you are so fun to rip on, but
Well, it's because he can take it and he dishes it out.
Okay.
Very well.
it's a good thing you don't have any hair. Like, it smells terrible when it's burning. Okay? I'm just saying.
Oh, BG.
Okay.
Oof.
You are.
I guess why don't I ask my dad? Because I don't have a good relationship with him. I can't ask.
You have a pretty
Is your
good
dad
relationship.
still alive?
He's in the area.
Yeah.
Really?
You know what Louis C.K. says? You're going to have a parent that's going to die way too young, and it's not going to be the one you want. And then the other parent is going to live forever, and they're never.
You're speaking hypothetically, right?
He's like, yeah, sure, hypothetically.
That's what Louis C.K. says.
Well, Louis C.K. says lots of hilarious.
I think we've gotten to the bottom of why you're so twisted, Brian. So it's got to have something to do with your dad.
There's a lot happening.
There's a lot to unpack.
Probably a Scotia.
Okay, so let's finish this, Pete. Whatever you want to note at the time, because we talked a bit. Okay, we got to wrap up this episode. Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, I'd love to stay here and tell jokes with you all night. I think we might after we're not filming because the two of you together are like a Molotov cocktail for me getting pulled off the internet somehow. And so I think we should wrap up this episode, and then we're going to film you, Peter, so you don't go anywhere.
We'll stay right here.
And good. Thank you. And Brian,
I'm not going to leave either.
you can stay. Do you want to stay? You can stay. You want to stay? I'm honored that you want to stay.
Yeah,
Want to stay and talk some smack with Peter?
sure.
Okay, but we're going to talk about SVP.
Yeah, he gave all the defense perspective on what I'm going to say about SVPs.
Do you want to? You can do it. We can do it.
You never did an SVP though. You did lots of criminal.
Appellate stuff on
Did you on SVP? I don't think I knew that. Because maybe I did know that. Did you call me a couple times to ask about welfare institution code law? So I guess maybe I did know that. I thought that was on a criminal case though when you were contacting.
All right. I don't think I can contain the two of you talking.
No. All right.
I'll step aside.
Get him out of here.
Hold on.
You're done.
Wait a minute. I'm not finished. I got to wrap it up.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and me, there's going to be a lot of editing on this one, Pete. Usually I'm just perfect and I say everything right and I don't have to edit.
To be
anything.
fair, you've been perfect the whole time. We're the problem.
You're not a problem.
know.
You're my dear beloved friends. And it doesn't mean you're not coming back on. But let's wrap this one up and then we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay? All right. before I get censored, we're going to wrap this episode up on a light note because we are defeating the darkness with the laughter of Brian, because even though he's dark and twisty and we're talking about a murder, the light part of it is that the truth shine through, right? And now your least favorite judge is in prison. Boom. I tied it into defeating the darkness. All right. Well, if you can't find the light, be the light, like Brian Gurwitz, who makes... I can't even say it without laughing. He is the light in my life, though. You got to know him because he's so brilliant. And when I call him, he answers the phone and he gives me legal guidance and cases that I need. So I love you, Brian. And I really appreciate you for coming on a second time.
My pleasure.
You're the best.
I'll come back after the case gets reversed and he does a retrial.
Don't say that. You're jinxing it. All right. Until we meet again. So long now.
Or when he's dead.
It's a wrap. Oh, yeah. We could talk about the funeral you attend.
Be the light, shine so bright.